Hello, how are we doing? Sometimes the weirdest connections happens. Ben and Jerry's, a Jewish-owned company, decides to boycott Israel. I don't know what it is. In my opinion, it's about ignorance and how the world interprets it. Let us try to understand the roots of modern anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism and give us a little bit tools to fight it. So. As you know, I've been involved in the Israel tourism industry for 3 decades. This year, I founded the Sinai Connection, which enables people around the world to invest in Israel, whether in real estate, high tech, charity, or more. Today, we'll talk about the roots of anti-Semitism and its modern manifestation. So let's go and start the show. Hey, and it's me again. So the history of anti-Semitism starts very, very early in the stages of establishing the new religion in the world called Christianity. We're talking about the 3rd century, early stages of acceptance of Christianity in Rome. I want to go all the way back there because that's the old anti-Semitism, but from that we can actually learn a little bit about the roots of what's happening over here today. As weird as it sounds, it's all connected. 2,000 years of history. I'll try and cram them in a few minutes. If I'll go way back then, we'll remember the last night of Jesus Christ upon standing in or sitting in at night in the Garden of Gethsemane, and Judas come in and kissed him, a kiss that actually revealed him as Jesus to the Romans. The fact that his name was Judas caused the Jews a whole lot of agony throughout the years. Just to put things in perspective, Jesus and his followers were all Jews, hence Judah and Jesus were the same Jews as the rest of the disciples. I'm saying that because this is the beginning when the church actually established itself as a church, as a religion separated from Judaism. It needed the segregation somehow, and part of it was to actually create an opportunity of separating it by demeaning Judaism or describing Judaism as the lesser of the 2 religions, so people will be bound to maintain and continue their path of faith through Christianity. That was the root to a lot of issues throughout the history, and I'm leaving these historical anti-Semitism, but I do want to move forward with that. As a result of that type of anti-Semitism, Jews, in a way, were not allowed to own lands, were not allowed to cultivate the lands, therefore they became peddlers and merchants and service givers like lawyers and accountants, all of that, or bankers, because you deal with merging between different societies and different villages. This village had a successful year, the other one had a less successful year. I can actually find ways to connect the wealth of that side and bring it to the other side. And by these transactions, I'm actually starting this notion called banking. The reason that this became such an important part of history in the Jewish life brought into the front those issues of, how would I say it in a nice way, envy. How come these guys who don't even have land in a society pre-industrial revolution, that you need to work hard to get a living, you need to work hard to bring food to the table of your family, and all of a sudden this thing doesn't really work, they don't do anything, and they have all the money. So they are evil, Therefore, the Jews were evil. Therefore, the Jews have to be mocked. Therefore, the Jews have to be persecuted. Therefore, all through the 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th century, we'll find horrible persecutions, pogroms that brought in the 19th century a birth of auto-emancipation, of freedom of Jews throughout predominantly Europe towards a new ability to build up their land in a different place. That different place was Israel. Way back then was called the land of Israel, Palestine, part of the Ottoman Empire. And that's where the Jews moved into. They moved into part of the Zionism movement, who said that the Jews as Jews have one homeland, and that's Israel. Hence, we're moving as the Jews into this old, new homeland called Israel. And the establishment of the state of Israel all came from this historical anti-Semitism, which I do want to give us what I just did, a little brief of it. But modernly, we can see that the change and the shift was based on these issues. So if I will move forward towards the 20th century and World War I and World War II, I find the persecution of Jews related not anymore on religious aspect as much as a racial aspect of who's Jews, and anti-Semitism in a way that we know it today, that the Nazis actually elevated it to the highest extent with murdering 6 million Jews as part of a cleansing of this nation called the Jewish nation. No matter what kind of relation you actually had to the religion, it doesn't really matter. It's in your blood, it's in your genes, hence let's kill them all. And I have to remind this because our neighbors of today, the Arab populated areas surrounding us, were part of this final solution in terms of the Jews. The Mufti of Jerusalem, the leader of the Arabs who living in this land, was part of the final solution within the Nazis. We have documentation over that. The head of the Palestinian Authority thesis as a doctor is denying the Holocaust and claiming that all of this is a Jewish invention towards the creation of a stolen land from the hands of the local indigenous Arabs who own this land legally. Forgetting that historically, when the Jews came in here, they had to buy the land. They didn't conquer it. There was no Jewish army or the IDF that was conquering the land. It was poor Jews who came from Europe, bought land in obscene amount of money out of the locals who saw an opportunity to grow, and bought bad lands, cultivated and greened it to what we have today as Israel. As we're moving forward towards the establishing of the state of Israel, something have happened, because the world, especially at the beginning, and that was 1948, we're talking about the memory or the world memory of the Holocaust was still very vivid. And the establishing of a small, tiny Jewish country surrounded with Arabs was kind of, you know what, whatever was not done by the Nazis, the environment will probably going to solve this problem once and for all. Now, I know it seems a little bit morbid when I'm saying that, but the truth is that ever since the state of Israel was established, one major call came out of this country towards our neighbors saying, guys, let's make peace. Let's live together. We don't want to fight anybody. We're running away from fights. We're running away from disasters. We want to live here peacefully with you all as part of this country, as part of this nation. Allow us to be here, and we're sending our hands for peace. And the result of that sending hand for peace was constantly another war and another battle and another struggle. And as a result, what happened is that the two sides actually tore apart. One major thing was the 6-Day War, that as a result of instigating a war against Israel, Israel retaliated, and in this case, not like in 1948, that we gained a little bit of land, but in general, majority of the land is in correlation to the partition plan, which is a story that we'll talk about maybe in a different live, was stayed within Arab control, and Arab countries like Jordan and Egypt ruled and controlled what we call today The West Bank is a name given to it by Jordan, and the Gaza Strip was a name given to it by Egypt. So the local citizens who lived in Gaza Strip and in the West Bank received IDs and passports of Jordan and Egypt, the actual Jordanian and Egyptian citizens that were annexed into these countries. Any claim, by the way, today on Israel stole our land, they could have come to the same claims to Jordan or Egypt, and they never did. The actual liberation movement or Palestinian national movement started in the late 60s, and it was not about the West Bank or the Gaza Strip. It was about Israel. It was about annihilating Israel. And even if you hear today any demonstration that are pro-Palestinians, the cry is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Hence, river is the Jordan River and the sea is the Mediterranean. Hence, the Jews should be pushed into the sea, something that has been repeating itself throughout history in the narrative of the Arab countries surrounding us. Unfortunately, we're not that good of swimmers. We do not like swimming, hence we're staying where we are, and we need to figure out a way to deal with it. I'll move forward into it to understand a bit of what's happening today. One of the things that happened after the Yom Kippur War was an understanding of the major countries surrounding us that we are here to stay. And we're starting to see the move towards peaceful solutions between us and our neighbors. The first one was Egypt, as we all know. In 1979, they came in here. We signed a peace agreement. Later on, we signed a peace agreement with Jordan. Only last year, we signed up another 4 agreements in the Abraham Accord with the Gulf countries, and it's going to grow faster and bigger. The actual countries of the Arab world understand and wants us all to be part of that unity because they understand that we're here to stay, and there's a lot that we can give to all of them. One thing that haven't been solved yet is the issue of the Palestinian people who live within the borders or the boundaries of the state of Israel in areas of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, which in the Gaza Strip, we already left this place in 1995, in 2005, and there is no Jews living in Gaza. Well, there's one Jew living in Gaza, 2 other bodies that they won't give us, and another Israeli Arab who is living in Gaza today. Well, they're held in captive. They're not really living there. But that's the only Jews who actually live within the area of Gaza. The Palestinians realize that the most powerful weapon they have in their hands is the media. And the media is easy to lie to because they don't do any fact check. Unless it is COVID-19, nobody fact checked anything. There is no sign saying this is bullshit and you shouldn't look at it and you shouldn't read it and you should find something else as a source of knowledge to what you're saying. They're just letting them pour it all out, whether it is one-sided or really connected to something. And the greatest opportunity to understand how it goes in the last decade or so, when the Palestinian movement is doing all they can to actually push the world, the free world, the more liberal world, into understanding that the bad guy in this story is not that David that we all thought was David in 1967 and in 1973 when countries were attacking it, but actually the Goliath is Israel, and we are here to destroy the Palestinian lives, to take their freedoms away, to bombard them nonsensely throughout the country, when the reality is completely different. I live in the West Bank myself. I care to say that I have some amazing friends that are all Palestinians. I have also Jewish friends. I live in coexistence with both, with a lot of love and with a lot of affection to one another. I can tell you that when things happen and wars starts in this area, the first to check on what's going on will be my Palestinian friends. Okay? And the reason for that is the understanding that in the field has nothing to do with what you hear about at home. And that's the greatest thing, because I'm looking at the recent issue that started with the declaration of Ben and Jerry's on stop selling ice cream in Israel. I mean, all right, so you're going to stop selling ice cream in Israel. We have a Ben and Jerry company in Israel that producing in Israel ice cream to Israel, regardless to Ben and Jerry, and they still have a year and a half of a lease and a contract with Ben and Jerry, and they're not going to stop selling. That's their way of selling, and it's all Israeli, and they paying taxes here, and they're using Israeli workers, and therefore this whole thing, besides being a very visual PR stunt, it doesn't really have a go on it. So I want to say something about it and give you a little bit of a tool. I just heard the other day a woman that used to work for Ben and Jerry's and actually quit because of what they said. There is a power to what we do. She did it after talking to a lot of high-ranked people within her organization. I want you to know that part of who you are as connected to Israel through the Sinai connection and through our connection in history, and the fact that you all been here and already saw this country and know the truth. And the truth is there. Nobody's hiding it. If you're looking into media that talks and bash Israel, whatever they do, UN is a good example. The UN have given more resolutions against Israel in terms of human rights, Palestinian human rights violations, than any other country in the world combined. Now that doesn't make any sense. What, North Korea, China, and whatever, there's half of the African countries, and Israel is the #1 violator of human rights. There's an issue there. I don't trust somebody who's one-sided. I want to see the whole picture. It doesn't mean that Israel is a saint. No, but it means that Israel is validly enough to say, look, we have issues here. It's a complicated situation. It's not a black and white. It's more than everything else, gray. And we need to stand strong and say, listen, when you say, let's boycott the land of the Jews, you say, let's boycott the Jews. Let's not give the Jews even an opportunity to have a homeland. And all of you, my friends, who love me and I love you as much, I want you to have in mind, this is the story. And all I want to give you is a tool. Whenever somebody is smearing Israel in whatever, you know the answer. And if you don't hesitate. Contact me. I'll give you the material. There's a lot of it. I have videos and connections and material that you can actually give them and explain what they say. And if in a situation of battles, you find things that doesn't add up because the media is saying stuff that doesn't make sense, just remember, not everything you see on the media is the truth. Sometimes it's just part of a much greater story. Maybe this part is truth, but it comes with another much bigger screen to put it all, but it just doesn't go into the lens of a video camera. So I want to move into a little bit positive way to end our session today. I do want you to remember that we're here and the Sinai Connection is here. And any questions you have about what's happening in this country, this is what we are here to do, to give you this connection. And with this notion of positive way, I want to conclude and invite you all to visit our website at the www.thesinaiconnection.com. With this, it's a place that will give you the ability to stay in touch with the country throughout the year. Even if you will not be able to physically arrive, I would love to connect with you and reveal to you everything that this blessed land has to offer. I really, really had an amazing day with you today, and I will see you again on Thursday. Have a great night. I love you all. Have a great week.